V22 of BricsCAD BIM sees the first introduction of the graphic override. It is a drawing customization feature that is somewhat akin to type plans, however it works in 3D model space and it has a temporary character. The main goal of this feature is to override the visual appearance of a specific selection of objects based on BIM properties, which can be useful in many different situations. I should note that this first version is only the beginning of a much more extensive functionality that is being developed, which will become available in subsequent releases of BricsCAD BIM. The graphic override is implemented in a floating panel that contains a few different elements. On top there is the filter element, which is the same as in BIM dimension and type plans. This is used to define which entities on the model should be overridden by setting up one or more criteria based on BIM properties and quantities. Next we have the customization settings, where we define how the filtered entity should be visualized. And lastly we have an element to define how all other entities that do not satisfy the filter criteria should be shown. So let's try it out. I want to filter on walls. I have them show in green instead of their original color. I click on apply, and there you go. What you see here is just a temporary visual override. It is not saved to the DWG and it's as performant as a normal model visualization would be. Since I will be showing you all features that this functionality has, I will switch on live mode so that every change I make in these settings is immediately applied to the model. So what's possible here? I can of course change the color. There's a select choice in the drop down, but it's also possible to select any desired color from this more extensive color picker. I can also set a transparency for the selected entities. I can choose whether or not to draw the edges, and I can even choose to completely hide the selected entities if you want to focus on the other ones. Furthermore, I can decide what to do with all the other entities in the meantime, and here I have the choice between 3 presets. Show them as they are, hide them all, or make them transparent so that you have a clear focus on the filtered entities but still see the building context. I can also change the filter that was set, either by modifying the existing criteria, changing the operation for example, now showing everything that's not a wall, changing the value, so now showing only the windows, or only the beams beneath the floor. And I can also add new criteria. For example, I want to restrict the wall type to be WT3. Meaning the internal walls. Or only showing the back walls. Or by removing criteria. All BIM properties and quantities or custom properties can be used in the filter. Now, if I close the dialog, the override remains active on the model and I can continue working as usual on it. If I reopen the dialog, the currently active settings are shown. The only way to get rid of the override is to either clear overrides in the dialog or by closing the model completely. Every opened document can also have their own overrides independently of each other. So in this document, I can set another override where I want to highlight the windows in light blue. And this is applied while not affecting the override in any of the other open documents. Now that we're finished with the basic functionalities, I will show you some more real-life examples on a big complex model with many blocks and external references. For example, to obtain a sort of structural view of this model, first I will want to set a simple filter on columns, for example, and then set all other entities to be transparent. Once this is applied, this gives a nice visualization of the structures in the building, while the building itself is still lightly visible around it. Now, for our next example, let's say we want to take a look at the fire ratings for all the doors in this building. To do this, we can set a filter on BIM type equals doors, and then we add a criteria for fire rating, and we want to have a look at all the doors that have a fire rating of FD60, for example. So in this way we can inspect the model for very specific purposes. So here are all the doors with fire rating FD60. Now I can of course change the filter if I want to look at all doors that do not have a fire rating of FD60, and I want to flag them in red, for example, to draw attention to it. So these are all the doors that might need some attention, for example. And finally, we can also filter on more quantitative things. For example, in this model, I'm looking at the widths of the walls, and I'm showing only the walls that are wider than 184 millimeters in green highlighting. So you can have a very specific view on the widest walls in the model. I can of course change the mathematical operators, and I can also look at the thinnest walls. Those are that are thinner than 184 millimeters, and I will show those in yellow and hide all the other entities, so that we can have a very specific view on these walls within the model. And finally, to close this demonstration, I want to reiterate that all these graphical overrides that I've been showing you are only temporary modifications to the visual appearance. However, it is possible to generate useful output from these models using the effect of the overrides. For example, by generating PDFs from sheets such as this one that show different viewpoints of our model where all beams have been colored green.